Hello and welcome to Amigos IAS. I am Adnan. In today's segment, we'll be discussing Model Code of Conduct. Now, yesterday, Election Commission of India has announced the date of elections for 5 states, legislative assemblies. Okay, what are those 5 states? Chhattisgarh, Mizoram, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Telangana. These 5 states are going to have elections in the dates of November 7th, 17, 23, and November 30 mostly. Okay, so these are the dates for this. Chhattisgarh is the only state out of these 5 states which is going to have two phases elections. Okay, that means elections are conducted in 2 phases. It is quite possible that depending on the states, depending on the requirement, sometimes elections can be conducted in several phases. So the results are going to be declared on December 3rd for all these states together. So that is the news. Now what is important here is to understand, after the announcement by the election commission happens for the elections, immediately the model code of conduct comes into practice. So let us try to understand this small topic. What is model code of conduct? So model code of conduct is what? It's nothing but rules, or we can say guidelines. These are issued by the Election Commission of India as soon as they announce the poll dates. So they have come into force in Telangana, and all the officials, that means the government officials who work with Telangana government, okay, they are deemed to be considered on deputation with Election Commission. That means now Telangana government has to follow the orders usually given by the Election Commission regarding the appointments, transfer of officials. Election Commission can guide the government to transfer any officials, to suspend any officials. Okay, so that means now deputation means now the delegation will be with the Election Commission. How many voters are there in Telangana? 3.17 crore voters are there, men and women almost, okay, half and half. Fine. On the polling date, what the Election Commission has told is transport facilities will be given to the person with disability. That means we need to have good access. We need to facilitate more and more people to vote in the election. So what we are doing, providing good access for the even person with disabilities also, and for senior citizens also. For the first time, what we are going to have here, see here, home voting facilities will be given for senior citizens as well as the person with disability in Telangana. They're going to provide what? Home voting facilities also are going to be provided. It means this is a push by the Election Commission to facilitate more and more people utilizing their franchise or the right to vote. And no loudspeaker, either static or mounted on vehicle, is permitted between 10 p.m. in the night to morning 6 a.m. No loudspeaker. Of course, whether they follow or not, it's a different question. Fine. All political advertisements issued on electronic media or social media anywhere will require certification, pre-certification by a body, okay, media certification and monitoring committee at the both district and state level. This is what is the basic announcement of Telangana, okay, with respect to the electoral officer announcing the details of the guidelines also. Now, what is model code of conduct is nothing but rules and guidelines. Who gives it? Election Commission. For what? To regulate the political parties which actually participate in the elections and the candidates also prior to the elections, to ensure what? Free and fair electoral process. That is the main goal, is to have free and fair elections. For that, we need to prescribe some guidelines, some code of conduct for the political parties and the candidates. This is in keeping with Article 324. So Article 324 talks about what? It talks about the direction, okay, supervision, control of the entire elections in India. That means, of course, elections for the Lok Sabha, legislative assemblies, it is vested with the Election Commission of India. That means it is not only going to just conduct the elections, supervise the elections, direct and control the entire process vests with the ECI. That is the significance of this particular article. That means ECI has been given autonomy by the constitution itself. It's a constitutional body. Anybody violating poll code will be having some strict punishment. What is that? I'll just come back to that. And from when this model code of conduct starts operating, from the date the schedules are announced till the date results are announced. That means, see, as soon as the election dates are announced, from that time till the time results have been announced, model code of conduct will remain in force. Please note this point. So what is the background behind this? Started in the 1960 in Kerala assembly elections. What happened? instructions were given to the political parties that you should adhere to certain rules, okay, regarding election meetings, speeches, slogans, etc. Follow certain decorum. That was the initial, push for the model code of conduct. Then in 1962 general elections, what happened? This model code of conduct was circulated by the election commission to recognized parties as well as state governments, and mostly it was followed by the political parties at that time. In 1979, what happened? They added a section because the ruling party, with the party which is in power, can misuse the official machinery for their election canvassing or campaigning. So they should not be getting undue advantage just because they are in power. Like we have this case, Indira Gandhi versus Raj Narayan case. Okay, so we understand that Indira Gandhi was convicted of electoral offense as per the RP Act. Okay, that is, she has misused the election government officials for her election canvas, and that was a charge on her. So this is also a punishment here. Fine. So 1991, what happens here? Repeated violations. Previously they will follow it, but after that they will keep on violating this basic guidelines, and as a result the atmosphere is vitiated. So election commissions decided to enforce model code of conduct quite seriously. At that time we had election commissioner TN Session, who was quite instrumental in enforcing this model code of conduct. Okay, that is a background here. Now what is this conduct? Okay, there are like so many points are there. Just for general purposes, let us just go through some of the points. Like for example, no political party or candidate can ask for votes on caste and religion. Okay, that means temples, mosques, churches, other religious places shall not be used for election propaganda or campaigning. That means it is also an offense under RP Act. Also in corrupt practices, you cannot do this. So overlappings are there. And IPC 153 talks about what? You cannot promote any enmity between two different groups. 295 IPC, 295A, all these are also present in the penal code sections. Okay. Similarly, model code of conduct says the same points. No political party is involved in any activity where there is atmosphere of hatred and tension among the people. Okay, different caste or religion. That means you cannot create animosity, atmosphere of hatred among the people based on various identities. Third point, they have the right to criticize the policies and programs, past records in their speeches. Usually this happens, right? But they should not comment on the family matters, personal matters. They should not indulge in character assassinations. Criticize the policies, but not the family or the character of the person. That was the point. Okay. And see here, threatening voters, giving bribes, campaigning within the periphery of 100 meters from polling booths. That is also an offense. Okay. Of course, it's not permitted as per model code of conduct. Organizing a public meeting within 48 hours of polling, you cannot do it. Arranging transport to and from polling booths is also prohibited here. Fine, but still many political parties do that. No political parties or the candidates can ask their followers to use a land, building, compound, wall, vehicle without the permission of property owner. Means you cannot just keep on slapping the pamphlets and electoral paraphernalia anywhere you want. You have to take the permission of the people or the owners wherever you put the flags. Okay. So political parties should ensure the identity slip which is given for the voters. You cannot put your own party symbol on the identity slip or the voter electoral rolls of the, but because many times what happens, political parties will take the slips, the electoral slips, and they will give it to the voters. But you cannot put your party symbol on the electoral slip. That is also an offense under MCC. Okay, and no advertisements shall be given at the cost of public money. Usually, ruling party will do this through newspapers and other media during the election. You cannot do it. You cannot use any campaigning in the election time. No advertisements are permitted, and other media should also not be used to disseminate the achievements of the government. You cannot highlight. Fine. Ministers, other authorities, maybe the numbering got somewhat odd here. It's 7 and 8. There is no specific order as such. There are so many guidelines. I have taken some to give you an idea of what model code of conduct is. Minister, other authorities shall not sanction grants, payments out of discretionary funds from the date elections are announced by the commission. Not only giving of funds during the date of election, after the election schedule, I'm sorry, but the point is government cannot announce any major scheme, major project, major welfare schemes cannot be announced during the code is in operation. That is also a limitation on the government also. That means when election dates have been announced, the code will come into practice, but you cannot announce new welfare schemes or new big policy measures unless it is very important for the country, unless it is something related to security of India. You cannot do it. So all these are general guidelines. So these have to be followed. That means you have to take permission before canvassing. There are designated time limits for canvassing. All these are basic codes or guidelines mentioned in the Model Code of Conduct. Fine. Recently, what additions have been happened to Model Code of Conduct, like opinion polls, which may influence the voters, exit polls. These have to be regulated. Okay, they have to be notified by the what? That means regulated by the ECI during the period of Model Code of Conduct. Before that also, that means you cannot keep on giving opinion polls again and again during the Model Code of Conduct, because what happens, it influences the voters. And exit polls also have to be done after the voting has been done. You cannot give, for example, one phase is over, there are 2, 3, 4 phases more. You cannot give exit polls for one phase, because it is going to influence or it is going to impact the voter choices. Fine. So prohibition of advertisements in print media on the date of polling. You cannot print ask for canvassing, but sometimes what the governments will do, what the parties will do, they will just put the ad by saying that we request all the voters to go and vote in the election. So in this space, hidden advertising also is done. Fine. So restriction on government advertisements featuring political functionaries during election period. Generally, governments will advertise their welfare schemes, but you cannot promote certain political candidates during the election phase. This is also a recent addition to the Model Code of Conduct. In 2013, Supreme Court has told EC that give guidelines regarding the election manifestos, because many times they promise what? Freebies. Freebies are promised many times, or again, this very thin line between what is a welfare scheme and a freebie. So we cannot define as such, because it depends from state to state. But when in manifesto, you cannot promise whatever you want, because Election Commission also told that, see, it suggests that parties in the manifesto should also tell what is the means to achieve the promises. That means EC included this Supreme Court direction in the 2014 general elections, and EC has told what, if you promise a lot of things in your manifesto, also tells the means, that is how money you have to give, you tell how do you acquire that particular money for the welfare scheme. That means, for example, if I say that I'm going to give car free for certain section of the population after I win the elections, I should also tell how much money it costs for me to implement my poll promise, and how do I get the funds for that particular project, I should mention. But again, this one also is not 100% being followed. Why? Because that is the question here. MCC is not legally binding. Please put this point in your mind. Okay. You cannot enforce Model Code of Conduct. It is not statutorily binding. Fine. So, but how then you can enforce it? For example, some parts of MCC are overlapping with what? IPC, Indian Penal Code, Criminal Procedure Code, and Corrupt Practices, RP Act 1951. Section 123 talks about the corrupt practices. So if certain parts of MCC also are there in IPC, CRPC and RP Act, then those things can be enforced. But remaining guidelines cannot be enforced as standalone for MCC. Okay, so MCC points which are there also in IPC, CRPC and RP Act can be enforced, but remaining are not. So Standing Committee in 2013 on Personal Public Grievances Law and Justice told, why not make MCC as legally binding, and why not add a separate chapter in RP, Representation of People Act? Why not add a separate chapter of MCC? But why EC is not accepting this? Because if you make it legally binding, so many people will go on file cases against each other. As a result, what happens? The process of elections will become quite lengthier, and it is quite costly and quite also difficult for EC to conduct elections all over India when elections are repeatedly held up because of legal challenges. So that is why, see, short duration, that means within 45 days you want to conclude this particular elections, but because of filing of cases, if it is legally binding, more and more time is required to solve the matters, and elections will become protracted. Fine. That is why it is quite difficult. So the EC is not in favor of making NCC as legally binding. So they have given an app also for people to vote any kind of violations of Model Code of Conduct. People like you and me, anyone can file this, or political parties, candidates, anyone can file any report or complaints with respect to C Vigil app. This app is for what? This app is for reporting the violations of Model Code of Conduct during the elections. Fine. So let us see one question here. The Model Code of Conduct is enforced from the date of announcement of election scheduled by Election Commission. Second statement, Model Code of Conduct is statutory. Third one, during by-elections, Model code of conduct will be applicable in the entire state concerned. By-election means what? In case of any vacancy of a seat because of death, resignation, or disqualification. If any seat is vacant or any seats are vacant, you will have a by-election for those seats. So during the by-elections, MCC is enforced throughout the state is the statement here. So please answer this question, which of the statements are true. I'll see you another day with another topic. Thank you.